CBS 46 News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Almost 3 weeks later, and we are still processing the carnage inside the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. 49 people killed, 53 others hurt, all inside the place the LGBTQ community, as well as others, thought was a safe place. Good morning. I'm Gloria Neal, and welcome to a special edition of Public Affairs on Peach. And this morning, a special edition of what we call the gunfight, the prevalence of guns in our country and the debate on where we go from here. We invite you to stay with us as we explore the heartache and the outrage that we have followed. Actually, so many have followed during this tragedy, as well as so many other tragedies. They have all unfolded. Now, we're going to have so many guests, but we're going to begin with two familiar faces. CBS 46 public safety consultant Mike Brooks and, of course, CBS 46 investigative reporter Art Harris. I want to thank you both for being here in this very important discussion. And Mike, I want to start with you because it's almost been, 3 weeks, as I said, the mass shootings in Orlando. And I want you to share your thoughts as you reflect on this now. It's been a little time. You can reflect on it. What do you think as even more mass shootings, terrorist attacks have taken place since then?
Whenever something like this happens, we always hear an outcry of what are we going to do about guns? What are you going to do about handguns? The alleged assault weapons, these kind of things, but nothing ever happens. And will something happen? Most likely not. I am still of the feeling guns don't kill people, people kill people. So I think it's more of a people problem than it is a gun problem here in the United States. Yes, there are a lot of guns that are out there, but what are you going to do? You're going to go and confiscate every gun from everyone? No, that's not going to happen because we do have a Second Amendment right to bear arms and to own weapons. And a lot of people here in Atlanta and across the country, they have weapons to protect themselves and their families.
Okay,
Too.
okay, this is all true, but ooh, honey, I need a show right now because you just opened up an entire can of worms where you hear people don't, it's not the guns, it's the people. All of that is true, but isn't it also true that there needs to be something that can help when you start talking about regulating guns? If you are looking at people who have guns and people who use guns, shouldn't there be something that can stop this? Are you saying that we are absolutely defenseless when it comes to stopping this kind of carnage that we're seeing in today's age when you start talking about using guns?
Well, what we need to do is we need to enforce the laws of dealing with guns that are on the streets already.
Okay.
And we have mandatory minimums. You look at what happened at the Pulse nightclub. You have that happen in a month, every month in Chicago. Look over the Father's Day weekend. You had double-digit people shot and killed, and you had triple digits of people who were wounded. That happens almost every weekend. Just this past weekend here in Atlanta, you had 5 people shot out on Moreland Avenue. Where's the outrage there? There's always outrage when something like this happens, but when something of Chicago or here in Atlanta happens, you hear nothing.
Well, but I hear, and I'm coming to you, Art, but I also hear that outrage. What I don't hear a lot of times is the understanding that people don't really, they're not able to come together or even bring together their thoughts on, you know what? I don't quite understand. These laws require money to make sure that we can man up the individuals to bring the money together to put in place folks who can have the, the backing to watch these laws or make sure these laws are actually being followed, right? So we say that there are laws on the books, but we don't have money to put in place to hire the people to make sure those laws are being enforced.
Right, on the local, state, and federal level.
That's right.
Because
so it's easy to say, let's enforce these laws, but when you don't have the money that's there, or the Congress or the legislature saying, well, we ain't going to put the money there, that's a whole different can of worms.
Well, then I put it right back on the state legislature and also on our members of Congress. We had Congressman Lewis, who was protesting on the floor of the House just the other day.
That's right.
And he had 5 of his constituents shot last weekend. And was he out there? So, no, it's up to our lawmakers.
But it's not just Congressman Lewis. Oh, honey, let's not talk politics now because we can both get into trouble. It's not just Congressman Lewis. It is on both sides of the aisle. And regardless of politics, you've got individuals on both sides of the aisles who have blood on their hands. If you want to talk about bullets and guns and responsibility and voters, people who do not come out, who really don't see it as their responsibility. When you start talking about gun legislation, people really need to stay plugged in because they don't think it's their problem when in fact it is everybody's problem. And that's what brings us
to this forum. We talk about the gunfight here at CBS 46 because we recognize it is everyone's
Absolutely.
problem. Art, when you start talking about some of the things that you have seen, as I asked Mike, how do you reflect on this problem?
The terrorist in Orlando was on the FBI watch list twice, and he was still able to buy guns. He was kicked out of a security guard school. And so you have this database, many databases that are not connected. And the FBI maintains and has to clear people who apply to buy a gun.
Right.
They give a gun seller just a few minutes. You can go in and it's very easy to buy a gun. If you don't pop up on one of their no-no lists, convicted felon, as I found out when I went into this, went undercover to North Georgia Gun Show, it is so easy. The guns are everywhere. They're selling any kind of firearm you can think of, assault rifles and ammunition, and I could go up and buy a gun just by putting my name down, paying them $16 for the check. The FBI is supposed to get back to them within several minutes.
Right.
And walk out with a gun. But the loophole is, if I am a terrorist and I don't want my name run through a system, I just go out in the parking lot and make a deal with somebody to buy a gun with cash. And that is one of the loopholes.
Right.
Or buy it online. And they need to sign and they need to marry the databases. Right now the FBI is swamped just screening the applicants that gun dealers send in to try to clear them to sell. First, when you apply, you either get an okay, a hold, or a deny. It can take up to 3 days. And then, so none of these things are linked. If they link the watch list, the terror watch list, somebody's on a terror watch list, they are linked now to the FBI database of convicted felons, people convicted of domestic violence, people convicted of some kind of mental disability. Those are some of the categories of folks who can't buy.
But see, the problem in Florida, where you had the shooter there at the Pulse nightclub,
Right.
yes, there was a preliminary inquiry, you call it PI,
Right.
and I've done many of them when I was with the FBI, and they went through some exhaustive measures to make sure, they even introduced a confidential informant to see whether or not he wanted to buy any explosive. But there was no criminality involved, so by the Second Amendment, you got to take his name off the list after the investigation was completed. There was no criminality involved.
I know, and that is such the challenge. I told you this was going to be hard. I told you it was. So when this special gunfight edition of Public Affairs on Peach returns, we will discuss proposals to ban assault weapons, including one right here in Georgia. Stay with us because, honey, the fireworks will continue. Back in a moment.